My daughter-in-law called me a relic, embarrassing right in my own home, I whispered to myself, the words stinging like a slap I never saw coming. I'm Helen Barker, 71, a widow who thought love meant opening my doors to my son, Lucas, and his wife, Amber. I cooked, gardened, wore my sweaters, my comfort, my truth. But to Amber, I was a flaw in her perfect image. What she didn't know, as she mocked me at her party, was that I'd already begun to plan my escape, my savings a secret key to freedom. This is the story of how I turned her betrayal into my triumph, even if it meant leaving my son behind. How would you face a betrayal like this? Stay tuned to find out. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. If this story's grabbing you, hit that like button to let us know. Something felt off that night, like a shadow creeping into a room you thought was safe. I stood in the corner of Amber's party, my fingers tracing the rim of a teacup, watching her glide through the room like she owned every inch of it. My home, our home, had become her stage, and I was just there, invisible. At 71, I'd grown used to fading into the background, but that night, something in me stirred. Why did her laughter feel like a blade? I'm Helen Barker, a widow who opened her doors to her son Lucas and his wife Amber when life got tough for them. After my husband passed, I thought sharing this house would bring us closer. I cooked, gardened, wore my old sweaters and knee-length skirts, comfortable, familiar. They were me. But to Amber, I was a relic, a smudge on her polished image. I didn't know it yet, but her words were about to crack something open inside me. The party buzzed with her PR friends, their voices sharp and bright, slicing through the air. The chandelier cast a golden glow, but I felt cold, out of place in my loose cardigan. I smelled her perfume, something floral, expensive, wafting as she leaned toward a friend near the dessert table. I'd stepped closer to refill the tray, unnoticed as always, when her voice cut through the chatter. Mum's style is just embarrassing, Amber said, her tone light but venomous. Those baggy sweaters, those skirts. She looks like she's stuck in the 1950s. It kills the vibe. Her friend laughed and my chest tightened. The teacup trembled in my hands, its warmth suddenly scalding. I froze, hidden by the crowd, as her words sank in. Embarrassing. A vibe killer. Me. I wasn't a person to her, just a backdrop that didn't fit her sleek, modern life. My heart pounded, not with anger but with a strange clarity. Had I been invisible to them all this time? I slipped back to the kitchen, the clinking glasses fading behind me. Alone, I gripped the counter, the cool granite grounding me. My mind raced back to my days as a librarian when I'd felt alive, surrounded by books and stories. I'd been someone then, hadn't I? Not this shadow. Amber's words echoed, each one a needle in my pride. But why did they hurt so much? Was it because they held a truth I'd ignored? I didn't confront her. I couldn't. Not yet. Instead, I stood there, staring at my reflection in the window, a tired woman in a faded sweater. But beneath the hurt, something flickered. A spark. I had savings, a nest egg I'd guarded for years. What if I didn't have to stay? What if I could choose myself? The thought was reckless, terrifying, but it felt alive. What would I do with this spark? Where would it lead me? Why had I given so much, only to feel like a stranger in my own home? Amber's words from the party lingered, sharp as broken glass, cutting deeper each time I replayed them. I sat in my garden the next morning, the damp earth cool under my fingers, trying to make sense of it. The roses I'd tended for years bloomed vibrant red, their scent heavy in the air. But even they couldn't soothe the ache in my chest. Had I been wrong to open my doors to Lucas and Amber? Had I been wrong to think love could bridge the gap between us? I'm Helen Barker, and this house, my sanctuary since my husband passed, had become a shared space when Lucas lost his job. I didn't hesitate to let them move in. It felt right, like a way to keep family close. I cooked their meals, kneaded dough until my hands ached, the smell of fresh bread filling the kitchen. I weeded the garden, my knees sinking into the soil, hoping my efforts would ease their burdens. My sweaters, my skirts, my quiet routines, they were my comfort, my anchor. But Amber saw them as flaws, didn't she? To her, I was a blemish on her perfect canvas. I leaned back on the garden bench, the wood creaking under me, and closed my eyes. The memory of those early days after my husband's death flooded in. I was 45 then, Lucas just a boy, his face crumpled at the funeral. The church smelled of lilies, cloying and thick, and I'd held his hand so tightly my knuckles turned white. I worked late nights, balancing library shifts and budgeting, my eyes burning as I pored over bills by lamplight. Every penny went to Lucas, his school, his dreams. I never complained. It was love, wasn't it? But now at 71, I wondered, had I given too much? The sun warmed my face, but my thoughts grew colder. When Lucas brought Amber home, I saw her ambition, her polish. She was 36, a PR professional with a smile that dazzled and eyes that judged. I admired her at first, thought she'd bring light to our home. But soon her presence shifted the air. She'd walk past my garden, her heels clicking on the path, and barely glance at the flowers. "They're quaint," she'd said once, her voice cool. Quaint, like me. I'd smile, swallow the sting, and keep going. Why did I let her words slide? In the kitchen, I'd hear her curt replies. "Thanks, Mum, but we're eating out," she'd say, her tone clipped as I set down a steaming casserole. I'd nod, the heat from the oven still clinging to my skin, and watch them leave. Lucas would trail behind her, his shoulders slumped, saying nothing. I wanted to ask him, "Do you see me, son? Do you know what this costs me?" But I didn't. I'd just clear the table, the clatter of dishes echoing in the empty room, and tell myself it was enough to help. One evening, I overheard Amber on the phone, her voice drifting through the open window. "Lucas needs to step up," she said, sharp and impatient. "And his mum? She's sweet but so out of touch. This house could be stunning if we modernized it." My breath caught. Modernized. My home filled with memories of my husband's laughter, his hand on mine as we hung those faded curtains. She wanted to erase it. Erase me. I stood frozen, the night air chilling my skin, my heart a heavy stone. Why did she see me as a problem to fix? I retreated to my room, the floorboards creaking under my steps. My old photos sat on the dresser, their frames dusty, the faint scent of lavender lingering from a sachet I'd tucked nearby. I picked up a picture of Lucas as a boy, his grin wide, and my chest tightened. I'd given him everything, my time, my strength, my heart. But now, with Amber's words ringing in my ears, I felt like a fool. Had I built a life for them only to lose myself? The thought gnawed at me, relentless, like the ticking of the clock on my nightstand. The next day, I kneaded dough again, my hands moving on instinct, the flour dusting my fingers like snow. But my mind was elsewhere. Amber's dismissals, her sighs when I spoke, her glances at my clothes, they weren't just words. They were a verdict. I wasn't enough, not for her, maybe not for Lucas. The dough felt heavy, like my thoughts, and I pressed harder, my knuckles aching. What had I become? A caretaker who'd forgotten her own worth? I stepped outside, the garden my refuge. The birds chirped, their song faint against the hum of my thoughts. I remembered my librarian days, the rustle of pages, the soft voices of patrons asking for recommendations. I'd felt alive then, purposeful. Now I was a ghost in my own story, fading with every meal I cooked, every weed I pulled. Amber's entitlement was a mirror, showing me a truth I'd avoided. I'd given them my home, my heart, but what had I kept for myself? My fingers brushed a rose petal, its velvet soft against my skin, and I felt a shift. Not anger, not yet, but a quiet question. What if I stopped giving? What if I chose me? The idea was a whisper, fragile but persistent, like the breeze rustling the leaves. I looked at the house, its windows reflecting the morning light, and saw not just a home, but a cage I'd built with love. Could I break free? And if I did, what would I lose? What do you do when the home you've poured your heart into becomes a battlefield? I stood in my living room, the air thick with the scent of Amber's lavender diffuser, and felt like a stranger. Her words from the party still burned. Embarrassing, a vibe killer. But it wasn't just her words anymore. It was her plans, her audacity to reshape my world without a thought for me. I'd given everything to Lucas and Amber, but now I saw it clearly. To her I was an obstacle, a relic to be swept aside. Why did she think she could erase me? I'm Helen Barker, 71, a widow who thought love meant sacrifice. I'd let Lucas and Amber move into my home, cooked their meals, tended the garden, all to keep us together. But Amber's dismissals had grown bolder, her sighs louder, her glances sharper. I'd ignored them, told myself it was just her way. But that evening, as I stood by the window, the curtains my husband and I hung years ago swaying gently, I overheard something that shattered my excuses. I'd been in the kitchen, wiping down the counter, the sponge rough against my palms, when Amber's voice drifted from the living room. She was on the phone, her tone clipped and confident, the kind she used for her PR clients. "We're redecorating," she said, her words slicing through the quiet. "The whole place needs a modern overhaul. Those old curtains, that dated furniture, it's got to go. Mum's taste is, well, you know." A laugh, sharp and cruel, followed. My hands froze, the sponge dripping onto the counter, water pooling like my thoughts. Redecorating my home without asking me? I stepped closer, my heart thudding, the floorboards cold under my socks. The memory hit me hard, my husband John standing on a ladder, his laugh warm as we hung those curtains. "Perfect," he'd said, his hand brushing mine, the fabric soft and new. This house was ours, every corner a piece of our story. Amber wanted to tear it down, to make it hers, as if I didn't exist. My breath caught, a mix of rage and grief tightening my chest. How could she? I should have stayed silent, kept the peace like always. But something snapped. I walked into the living room, my sweater loose around me, and faced her. Amber looked up, startled, her phone still in hand, the lavender scent cloying now, suffocating. "Amber," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Did I hear you right? You're planning to redecorate my home?" My words hung in the air, sharp, demanding an answer. She blinked, her lips parting, then curled into a smile, tight, practiced. "Oh, Mom, you heard that?" she said, her tone light, like she was soothing a child. "It's just an idea. This place could be so much more, don't you think? Modern, sleek, something that fits us. Fits us, not me." Her words were a slap, but her smile was worse, dripping with condescension. I felt my hands tremble, the air growing colder, the room shrinking around us. "Fits you," I said, my voice low, each word deliberate. "This is my home, Amber, mine. You don't get to decide what stays or goes." My heart raced, a drumbeat against my ribs, but I held her gaze. Lucas was there, in the corner, his eyes on the floor, silent as always. Why wouldn't he speak? Why wouldn't he see me? Amber's smile faltered, but only for a moment. She tilted her head, her voice softening, manipulative. "Mum, you're taking this the wrong way. I'm just trying to help. You don't want to live in a museum, do you? It's not about you. It's about what's best for all of us." Her words were smooth, calculated, but they burned. Not about me. She was gaslighting me, twisting my hurt into something trivial, making me feel small. The room felt darker, the shadows from the lamp stretching like claws. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to make her see me, not the outdated mother-in-law, but Helen, who'd loved, lost, and built this life. But I didn't. I stood there, my nails digging into my palms, the pain grounding me. "This is my home," I repeated, quieter now, but firm. "You don't get to change it." I turned and walked away, my steps heavy, the air thick with unspoken words. In my room, I sank onto the bed, the mattress creaking, the faint lavender from my dresser sachet mocking me. I picked up a photo of John and me, the frame dusty, his smile frozen in time. We'd danced in this house, laughed, dreamed. Amber wanted to erase that, to erase me. My chest ached, not just with hurt, but with clarity. She didn't just disrespect me, she saw me as nothing, a prop in her perfect life. Why had I let her make me feel this way? I stood, my reflection in the mirror catching my eye. My sweater, my skirt, they were me, not her version of embarrassing. I thought of my savings, tucked away for years, a lifeline I'd forgotten. The spark from the party flared brighter now, a fire. I didn't need to stay here to shrink for her. I could choose myself. But what would that mean? Leaving Lucas? Leaving this house? The question swirled, relentless, like the wind rattling the window. I sat at my desk, the wood smooth under my fingers, and let the truth settle. Amber's manipulation wasn't just words, it was a theft of my place, my worth. I wouldn't let her win, not anymore. I didn't know what I'd do next, but I knew I'd do something. The resolve felt like a pulse, steady, alive. What would my first step be? How would I reclaim what was mine? Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So, if you're enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments. Could I really walk away from everything I'd built, everything I'd loved? The question hung heavy as I sat in my room, the moonlight spilling through the window, casting silver shadows on the floor. Amber's words, her plans to erase my home, had lit a fire in me, but it wasn't rage, it was resolve. I was done shrinking, done being the invisible mother-in-law. I'd given Lucas and Amber my heart, my home, but I wouldn't give them my soul. The idea of leaving, of choosing myself, felt like a forbidden dream. But as I traced the edge of an old photo of John and me, the sea behind us sparkling, I wondered, what if that dream could become real? The memory of Maine came unbidden, vivid as the day it happened. John and I, years ago, walking hand in hand along a rocky beach, the salt air sharp in our lungs, the waves crashing like a heartbeat. "This is where we'll grow old," he'd said, his voice warm, his arm around me. The cottage we'd stayed in was small, weathered, with a porch overlooking the sea. I'd felt alive there, free. Could I find that again? The thought was a lifeline, pulling me from the weight of Amber's disdain. The next morning, I moved carefully, my steps light to avoid waking Lucas or Amber. The kitchen smelled of last night's coffee, the pot still warm, a reminder of my routine. Always for them. I slipped out, my sweater soft against my skin, and drove to the library, my old sanctuary. The familiar scent of books, musty and comforting, wrapped around me as I sat at a computer. My fingers trembled as I searched for cottages in Maine, each click a step toward something reckless, something mine. A small house popped up, white clappered, a porch, just like the one John and I loved. My heart skipped. Was this possible? I called the real estate agent from a quiet corner, my voice hushed, the phone cord twisting around my finger. "I'm interested in the seaside cottage," I said, my words feeling like a secret. The agent, a woman named Clara, had a warm voice, steady. "It's a gem," she said. "Needs some love, but it's got heart. Want to see it?" I hesitated, the weight of what I was doing pressing down. "Yes," I said finally, my breath catching. "But please, keep it private." She agreed, and we set a date. The call ended, and I sat there, the hum of the library fading, my pulse loud in my ears. What was I starting? Back home, I kept my secret close, moving through the day like nothing had changed. I kneaded dough, the flour dusting my hands, but my mind was on that cottage, its porch, the sea. Amber breezed through the kitchen, her heels clicking, her voice sharp as she talked on her phone. "We'll need a designer soon," she said, not even glancing at me. My jaw tightened, but I stayed silent, my hands pressing harder into the dough. She didn't know I was slipping away, that I was building a life she couldn't touch. But could I keep this from Lucas? Could I leave him with her? That night I lay awake, the moonlight painting patterns on my ceiling. I thought of Lucas, his quiet presence, his silence when Amber dismissed me. I loved him, but he was caught in her orbit, unable to see me fading. The thought of leaving him hurt, a deep ache in my chest, but staying hurt more. I saw myself in that cottage, reading on the porch, the sea breeze in my hair. No one to call me embarrassing. The image was so vivid it felt real, but it came with a price. Would Lucas understand? Would he forgive me? The next day, I visited the bank, the air cool and sterile, the counter polished to a shine. I withdrew enough to secure the cottage, my hands steady as I counted the crisp banknotes. The teller smiled, oblivious to the weight of my choice. "Big plans?" she asked. I nodded, my throat tight. Something like that. Walking out, the money in my purse felt like a secret weapon, a key to freedom. But as I drove home, the fear crept in. What if Amber found out? What if Lucas felt betrayed? The questions churned, relentless, like the waves I longed to hear. I parked and sat in the car, the leather seat creaking under me, the house looming ahead. Amber's car was gone, Lucas inside, probably lost in his thoughts. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white, and let the truth settle. This wasn't just about leaving, it was about reclaiming myself. I'd been a mother, a widow, a caretaker, but I was also Helen, with dreams and strength I'd buried. The cottage wasn't just a house. It was a chance to live again. I'd keep my plans hidden, move quietly, but I'd move. The resolve felt like a pulse, steady, alive. I stepped out, the gravel crunching under my shoes, and looked at the house. The curtain swayed in the breeze, a reminder of John, of me. I wasn't running away. I was running towards something. But what would happen when I left? Would Amber see her mistake? Would Lucas follow? The questions hung heavy, but I was ready to find out. What does it feel like to break free from a cage you didn't know you were in? The dawn was barely breaking, a soft gray light seeping through my bedroom window when I made my choice. My bags were packed, hidden under the bed for days, each item a quiet rebellion against Amber's disdain. Her words, embarrassing, vibe killer, had pushed me here, to this moment, where I stood on the edge of something new. I was leaving my home, my son, for a cottage by the sea. My heart pounded, a mix of fear and exhilaration as I gripped the pen to write the note that would change everything. Would they understand? Or would they see me as the one who betrayed them? I'm Helen Barker, 71, a widow who thought love meant staying, sacrificing. Amber's betrayal, her mockery, her plans to erase my home, had shown me I was more than her backdrop. I'd planned in secret, found a cottage in Maine, a place John and I once dreamed of. Now, as the house slept, I moved like a shadow, my steps soft on the creaking floorboards. The air smelled of last night's dinner, a faint trace of rosemary, and I paused in the kitchen, the heart of my sacrifices. This was it, no turning back. I sat at the table, the wood cool under my palms, and wrote, "Don't worry, I'm fine. I just want to live a life. That's mine." The words felt heavy, each one a piece of my truth. I saw John's face in my mind, his smile as we walked the Maine shore, the waves crashing, his voice promising we'd return. "You're stronger than you know," he'd said, his hand warm in mine. That memory steadied me, the pen moving faster now. I folded the note, my fingers trembling, and left it on the counter, a small defiant act. What would Amber think when she found it? I packed the last of my things, books, sweaters, a photo of John, into my car, the leather seats cold against my skin. The engine hummed softly, a secret shared between us, as I drove away, the house fading in the rearview mirror. My chest ached for Lucas, his silence a wound I couldn't heal. I loved him, but I couldn't stay, not when Amber's disdain stripped me bare. The road stretched ahead, dark and quiet, the first rays of sun glinting on the horizon. Was I running away or running toward myself? Maine greeted me with a salty breeze, the sea's roar a song I'd forgotten. The cottage was just as I'd imagined, white-clappered, weathered, with a porch overlooking the waves. I stepped inside, the floorboards creaking, the air thick with dust and possibility. Sunlight streamed through the windows, warming my face, and I felt a weight lift. I unpacked my books, their pages rustling, and set John's photo on the mantel, his smile a quiet approval. This was mine, my home, my life. But would Lucas ever see it? Hours later, my phone buzzed, Amber's name flashing on the screen. My heart skipped, but I was calm, the sea's rhythm steadying me. Her text was short, frantic. Mom, we didn't mean it. You're just so different. Different. The word stung, but it didn't break me. She was rattled, her perfect world shaken by my absence. I pictured her in the kitchen reading my note, her manicured nails tapping the counter, her face pale. We didn't mean it, she'd said, but her voice, sharp in my memory, told a different story. Those sweaters, those skirts, she kills the vibe. I didn't reply. Let her sit with it. Let her feel the void I'd filled for too long. I stepped onto the porch, the wood rough under my feet, and breathed in the sea air, sharp and clean. The waves crashed, a steady pulse, washing away years of doubt. I wasn't the embarrassing mother-in-law anymore. I was Helen, alive, free. I thought of Lucas, his silence, his slumped shoulders. Would he come looking for me? Would he understand? The questions lingered, but they didn't own me. I'd chosen myself, and that was enough. For now. I sat on the porch, a book in my lap, the pages soft against my fingers. The sun dipped low, painting the sky gold, and I felt a triumph I hadn't known I could claim. Amber's text was a crack in her armor, a sign my departure had shaken her. She'd expected me to stay, to shrink, to let her rewrite my story. But I'd rewritten it myself. This cottage, this sea, this moment, they were mine. What would Amber do next? Would she try to pull me back? If you're cheering for my victory, smash that like button. What do you think about this moment of justice? Let us know in the comments. What does it mean to find yourself after years of being someone else's shadow? The sea stretched before my cottage, its waves a steady whisper, as I sat on the porch, a book open in my lap. The air was sharp with salt, the morning sun warm on my skin, and for the first time in years, I felt whole. I'd left Amber's disdain, Lucas's silence, and the weight of my old life behind. This was my new beginning, but as I traced the edge of the page, I wondered, what strength had I uncovered in this quiet rebellion? Could I truly build a life that was mine? I'm Helen Barker, 71, a widow who'd once thought love meant fading for others. Amber's betrayal, her cruel words, her plans to erase my home, had pushed me to Maine, to this weathered cottage by the sea. I'd walked away, left a note, and chosen myself. Now, weeks into my new life, I was learning what that choice meant. The cottage was small, its walls creaking with every gust, but it was mine. My books lined the shelves, their familiar weight a comfort, and John's photo smiled from the mantel, a reminder of who I'd been and who I was becoming. Mornings began with coffee, the bitter steam curling in the cool air, and a walk along the shore. The sand was rough under my feet, the waves lapping at my toes, and I'd breathe deep, letting the sea wash away the echoes of Amber's voice. Embarrassing, she'd called me. Outdated. Here, in my sweaters and skirts, I felt timeless, not trapped. I'd sit on a driftwood log, the wood smooth and salt-worn, and watch the gulls soar, their cries sharp against the wind. What had I been so afraid of losing? The neighbors were a surprise, their warmth creeping into my days like sunlight through a cracked window. There was Clara, the real estate agent who'd become a friend, her laugh bright as she brought me homemade jam, its sweetness lingering on my tongue. "You're one of us now," she'd said over tea, her voice warm, her mug clinking against mine. We sat in my tiny kitchen, the table scarred from years of use, and shared stories. She spoke of her kids, her garden. I spoke of my librarian days, the rustle of pages, the quiet joy of helping someone find the perfect book. Her eyes lit up, and I felt seen, not as a relic, but as Helen, with a story worth hearing. Other neighbors joined us sometimes, their voices a soft chorus over the clatter of teacups. There was Tom, a retired fisherman with hands rough as rope, who'd tell tales of storms at sea, his words painting pictures I could almost touch. "You've got grit, Helen," he'd said once, his grin wide as we stood on my porch, the sea glinting behind him. Grit. The words settled in me, solid, real. I'd smile, my fingers brushing the porch railing, its paint chipped but warm under the sun. Why had I ever doubted my strength? I started writing, something I hadn't done since my youth. My memoir began as scribbles, the pen scratching against paper, the ink smudging under my hand. I wrote about my librarian days, the smell of old books, the soft voices of patrons, the way a story could change someone's day. I wrote about John, our walks by the sea, his laugh like a wave breaking. The words poured out, sometimes halting, sometimes fierce, each one a piece of me reclaimed. I'd sit by the window, the curtains fluttering, the sea's rhythm matching my heartbeat. Was this what it meant to live for myself? The act of writing was a mirror, showing me a woman I'd forgotten. I remembered the late nights raising I'd stayed up late, budgeting for Lucas, my eyes burning from the numbers. I'd been strong then, hadn't I? And now here I was, building a life from scratch, not for Amber, not for Lucas, but for me. The realization hit me one evening as I sat on the porch, the sky streaked with pink, the pages of my memoir scattered around me. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. The sea whispered back, its voice a quiet strength, and I felt it in my bones. What had I been capable of all along? I thought of Amber sometimes, her text. "You're just so different." Still sharp in my memory, I hadn't answered, but her words no longer cut. She'd seen me as a problem, a flaw in her perfect image. But here, with the sea, the neighbors, my words, I was enough. I pictured her in my old kitchen, her nails tapping, her world a little smaller without me. Did she regret it? Did Lucas? The questions lingered, but they were distant now, like the gulls fading into the horizon. What lesson did you take away from my journey? Share it in the comments. If this story inspired you, share it with a friend who needs to hear it. What does it mean to live a life that's truly yours? I stood on my porch, the sea stretching before me, its waves a soft murmur under the morning sun. The air was crisp, salted, carrying the scent of kelp and freedom. In my hand, I held a card, its paper smooth, a photo of me tucked inside. Me, smiling, a book in one hand, a teacup in the other, the cottage glowing behind me. This was my truth, my triumph, and I was ready to share it, not with anger, but with quiet strength. What had I learned from leaving Amber's judgment behind? What did it mean to choose myself? I sat at my small table, the wood scarred but warm, and thought back to that night at Amber's party. Her voice, sharp and careless, echoed in my memory. "Mum's style is just embarrassing. It kills the vibe." I'd stood in the shadows, my teacup trembling, feeling small, unseen. That moment had cracked something open, a wound but also a door. I'd walked through it, leaving my home, Lucas's silence and Amber's disdain. The sea breeze stirred the curtains, and I smiled. That wound had healed, hadn't it? I wrote inside the card, my pen scratching softly, each word deliberate. "Sometimes being different is the truest thing you can do." I sealed it, the envelope crisp under my fingers, and slipped the photo inside. Me on the porch, alive, unapologetic. This wasn't revenge, it was clarity. Amber had seen me as a flaw, but I was a story, a life, a woman who deserved respect. I'd learned that respect started with myself, with choosing a life that fit me, not her. What would she feel when she saw this? I walked to the mailbox, the gravel crunching under my shoes, the sea's rhythm steady in my ears. The card felt light, but its weight was immense, a bridge, not a weapon. I pictured Amber opening it, her nails pausing, her eyes narrowing at the photo. Would she see me? Really see me for the first time? Or would she dismiss it, like she'd dismissed me? The questions didn't haunt me anymore. I'd found my peace, my purpose, here in this cottage, with the waves and my words. Back on the porch, I settled into my chair, the wood creaking, a book open in my lap. The sun climbed higher, painting the sea gold, and I felt a deep gratitude for John's memory, for my neighbor's laughter, for the strength I'd uncovered. I'd been a mother, a widow, a caretaker, but now I was Helen, whole and free. Amber's text, "You're just so different," flashed in my mind, but it held no power. Different was my victory, my truth. I closed my eyes, the sea's whisper blending with my heartbeat. I'd learned that you don't need to fit anyone's mold to deserve respect. Silence, My silence wasn't weakness. It was resistance, dignified and fierce. I'd walked away, not to hurt, but to heal. This life, this cottage, this moment, they were mine and no one could take that away. I was enough,